Gann of the Calvary Baptist Church to come and lead us in prayer. I'm going to ask Councilman Butcher to lead us in the pledge.
He has shown thee, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of you, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, how we bless your name, how we thank you for this opportunity and privilege that we now enjoy, that you've allowed us to gather together in a country where we are free and able to express our conviction. We are able to touch and agree and be on one accord. I pray your blessings now upon this city council. I pray that they may disagree but not become disagreeable. I pray your Holy Spirit would fall afresh upon us with that anointing that would turn hearts of stone into hearts of flesh. I pray for unity within our city, that we may come together, united to build a better Shreveport that is conducive for growth, that our young people will come back here and want to build homes, businesses will want to be here. Bless us collectively and individually, and we'll always give you the praise. In the name of the Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you be kind enough to call the roll?
Here, ma'am. Here. Here.
I'm here.
Present.
Thank you. Tomorrow, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting Monday, September 11, 2023, administrative conference meeting Monday, September 11, 2023, and the city council meeting Tuesday, September 12, 2023. Does any member of the council have any awards, recognition, or distinguished guests not to exceed 15 minutes today?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
tomorrow we will be asking the council to vote on a resolution, I don't know the exact number, to recognize Cindy Dyer. She has been named the president of the Louisiana Realtors Association, and myself and Councilman Talaferro and Councilman Dr. Jackson are sponsoring this because we're all three realtors. So it's a big deal for us. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? I'd just like to recognize Pastor Gann and Pastor Roy King and Pastor Steve Miller. I don't know if there are any other pastors. Pastor who? Warren Bryant and Bruce Carroll. Bruce, I'm going to call you. I've just been tied up. I've been having trouble with my provider. All right. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, do you have any awards, recognition, or distinguished guests not to exceed 15 minutes?
Mr. Chairman, only to say that Africa Price is present. She is a nominee, an appointee for the Shreveport Implementation and Redevelopment Authority. I do plan to ask that all of those confirmations be postponed today. And I believe that Ms. Rania Henderson, who is appointed to the Deputy Director of the Department of Information Technology, is here. That's all I have.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, do you have any other communication relative to city business or any other awards recognition?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all of those who participated in the continuation of the march last Friday. It was a moving experience for me. Thank you for walking alongside me. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. I know that Dr. Jackson also participated, and I thank everyone who did. Today, I think also I want to wish Councilman Bowman a happy birthday. And then to announce that the Citizens Capital Improvement Committee will have some listening sessions to receive input from the public. The first of those will be on Wednesday, October 4th at 6 p.m. at Southern University in the Jackson Building Auditorium. And then on Thursday, October 5th at 6 p.m. at Louisiana State University in the University Center Theater. There will be 2 meetings the following week as well, on Tuesday and Thursday, and we'll send out announcements of those. And that's all that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Justin Sevier is also here, who is the nominee for Shreveport Implementation and Redevelopment Authority.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Does any member have any questions for property standards for Mr. Green? Mr. Green, would you give me a call Wednesday morning?
Wednesday morning?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Mr. Clark, will there be a master plan report? He's not here. Did everyone receive their budget and actual financial report? Sure you'll have it by tomorrow. Public hearing, none. Mr. Dark, will there be any legislation added tomorrow?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there will be. We forwarded one to the clerk today. It's an ordinance on first reading amending the 2023 capital improvements budget.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Today, we will hear public comments on non-agenda items and agenda items. You will have 3 minutes to speak. The vice chair will control the list and the time.
Cancroft.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Ken Kraft, 157 Archer, Shreveport, 71105. One of the topics about the school crossing guards I've mentioned before, but today's a good example of how we need to improve the system by which the lights run. There was no Caddo school today because of power outages because of the storm yesterday. Found that out by listening to Keel in the bedroom and didn't go to University Elementary. But I got curious and I went out anyway. And guess what? The lights are blinking at AC Steer and at Erie Drive, even though there's no school. So people who know there's no school and see the lights disregard the lights because they know there's no school. And the blue light gets them and sends them a ticket. It's happened to some friends. On days without school, the lights should not be flashing. Maybe the new IT director can cure that minor illness. The second thing was a suggestion made to me before church yesterday I don't like, but I'm passing it along for a lady who's 94. She thinks this council and this administration should in effect buy off Miss Fleming's with X $1,000. I told her I thought that sets a bad precedent. If an at-will person can be quieted and go away with so many dollars, what do you do the next time a mayor wants to let, or a council wants to let go an at-will employee? You might not want to buy them off, so to speak. And the final thing would be just a couple little quotes for your deliberation as a collective body. In the final Federalist paper, 85 by Hamilton, everybody keeps this with them, right? I'm sure. It says, we can never expect a perfect collective body from imperfect man. The result of the deliberations of all collective bodies must necessarily be a compound, as well as the errors and prejudices they make, as of the good sense and wisdom of the individuals of whom they are composed. That's talking about the Constitutional Convention, but it applies today to this collective body. We're imperfect. The pastor has said that many times. We strive to be perfect, but the only perfect man died a long time ago on Calvary. Finally, there's also this little tidbit. The judgments of many in a collective body must unite in the work, or they disagree in the work. Experience must guide their labor. Time must bring it to perfection. I don't agree with Hamilton, but as close to perfection as possible. And the feeling of inconveniences must correct the mistakes which they inevitably must make and must fall into their first trials and experiments. That's from Hume's Essays, Volume 1, page 128. I'm just cautioning y'all, you have a long way to go. We're a fairly new body. The elections were only a year ago for the mayor and the council.
Mr. Kraft, thank you.
So let's work together collectively. Thank you.
Thank
Chase Boynton.
My name's Chase Boydum. I live at 640 Dudley in 71104. I'm here because I'm a tenant of the city in the Red River District, and in private, I've been talking with Councilman Brooks, and I've talked with Mayor Arsenault, and both of them have tried to help us, but we're just not getting help fast enough. The Red River District is a city-owned property and is in horrible condition. I brought some pictures that I'm going to show. We have no lighting. There are homeless people living everywhere, where there's like little trash huts, and I even have pictures of where they caught trash on fire. And I operate a business down there. I'm right shy of 20 years down there, and I'm afraid if something doesn't happen very soon, that we will be out of business. And I know all of the other tenants down there are struggling very hard. Our neighbors, they weren't even open Saturday. It's been so bad, and I would like to show you these pictures. Like, these lights are not on. Those are literally come on during the day and come off at night. And I go to my property manager, nothing happens. I go to SPAR, who I've dealt with in the past, nothing happens. These lights here on Commerce, those have been broken since Jeff Everson was city council member, so going back 3-4 terms. This is directly in front of my business. Those lights do not work. Those are on a timer. The bulbs are fine, just somebody literally has not, and I've begged them to come by there, they will not come. When you go down by the casino where most of our customers come, because we're one of the only whiskey bars in Shreveport, we get a lot of our customers through tourism. You can notice that all the lights on Clyde Fant work, except the lights directly in front of our businesses. That literally just those lights going into the Red River District, right here, I'll show you. And finally, I'm so sorry. And right here. So those, all the other lights work except these. It almost feels intentional. And I've asked those lights to be replaced. I recently had a call from a customer that was like, we don't really know where you're at. We see it's the Red River District. How do I get to you? And I said, oh, we're right under the bridge. You just go to the first floor and you walk under the bridge. And the person on there, they said, do you really want us to walk under this dark alley to get to you? And I had just a sinking feeling in my stomach. I didn't know what to do. I felt hopeless. I said, well, I mean, you want me to walk down there and walk with you? And, you know, pre-COVID, we used to have where the city paid for police Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. We haven't had that since COVID. And just to show you, this is the casino side where all the lights actually work.
Mr. Chase,
Yes, ma'am.
so you say the lights on the casino side?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Every one of the lights, except the lights directly entering in the district, do not work. And sadly, right when you go into the district from the casino side, which most of our customers come from that side, there's often people sleeping right there. I've witnessed somebody smoking crack. I'm not even exaggerating. It's very bad things, sexual acts right there because it's dark, nobody can see. And so it's a convenient area to hide and be up to no good. And we personally had some customers that have tried to come down and they've been scared away by people living on the street and stuff like that. And we've had homeless as long as I've been down there, and we try to help them. We give them free waters and free food because just personally, spiritually, I don't feel, you know, I try to help. Where I get frustrated is when we have situations where people are just yelling at people and I call the police and people tell me there's nothing you can do. I mean, they're just yelling at them. People probably with mental health problems and just going crazy. And I'm like, I've told the police officers that I've called several times that it's just an impossible situation to operate a business this way because, I mean, just no legitimate customers are coming to go through this dark and very scary place. I have a few other pictures if that's okay. So the,
Let me ask you,
Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask you this. Mr. Teleferro, you had a question?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask you just one more question again about the lighting. When you said that you've been there about 20 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And so there has not been any lighting that's changed when you,
So some of those lightings, like the lighting that I showed you, the tree lights and stuff, those usually are on, and that's kind of why I've been frustrated. Those have been off for about 3 months, and it's simply just basically on a timer wrong, basically. But there are other lights, like the lights on the actual bridge are off as well. And if these were on, these LED lights, it would help a lot because my business is directly underneath these lights here. So it's just like there's just so many lights out. It's basically all the lights that exist except a couple. And we even have a couple lights that are just about to go out that just flash. And it's abrasive, you know.
so for the sake of time, because I know we
Yes,
have
ma'am.
to wrap that up, could you leave those?
Yes, ma'am.
pictures?
Yes, ma'am. And I would like to, I'm going to send a follow-up email to everybody if that's okay, because I have an email that was sent now, previous administration, from Cohab, who is now gone, begging for help with this problem. And this is what we see every night. I'd like to show you. So this is somebody sleeping right there in the dark. Another situation, somebody sleeping in the dark. And because of the, I'm sorry, I just got stuff falling over. But I have a ton of pictures that I'm going to share where it's like just things are broken. We've been broken into 3 times this year. This is a picture of my business broken into in July. We were also broken into in March. Somebody just went behind the bar and threw things. My back door was pried open. When I recently got my fire inspection in June, they wanted to inspect the fire suppression system. We went in the back, and the area that the fire suppression system was in, the door had been jimmied open. It's usually locked. It was destroyed, and anybody could just go back there and start pulling stuff and set off our alarm system. Recently, we had to close for several days because there was some leak from the roof, and both myself and Generals, who's my neighbor, who's been struggling really with this. I mean, they had to have ServSafe come in, and their building was flooded from whatever leaked from the roof.
So what we'll do is that we'll take those pictures, and then we'll ask the administration to follow up with you regarding that, Mr. Mayor. Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jeremy Taylor.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I'm Jeremy Taylor. Address P.O. Box 8456. I'm on the Taylor family property. I wanted to speak to you guys in favor of the food truck court that's going to be on the agenda to vote on tomorrow. Recently, we applied to put a food truck court in the Highland area on Stoner Avenue. And we had a few community meetings. The first time we had a community meeting, it was around 12, where we were told to have a meeting after 5 so that we can make sure everyone make it. But when we had the community meeting, some neighbors showed up. One of the neighbors that didn't show up that's in the area is the mayor. We actually invited the councilman to come out to the city council, to the community meeting as well, and he didn't show up. Recently, our motion for the food truck court was appealed by the Highland Neighborhood Association president. It was said that they didn't want it in the area because of trash and comments in the NPC meeting that was previously held. Comments that were made by the mayor was concerning trash from the patrons of the food truck court. Well, that area is a food desert, and it's bringing life back to Stoner. Just want to bring something positive to the area. I'm an investor in that area. I've been an investor in Highland since 2016. I've invested my hard-earned dollars, not something that someone has given to me, my wife and not my family. And I'm speaking in favor of it. It needs something different. We're doing a few different investing ideas in that area to bring some life back. We're also going to open up a coffee shop next to the food truck court, and we're thinking about doing a breakfast and brunch spot next to that food truck court. So it's something different, something that we're personally, as an investor, is doing, not with any city funding, any grant funding, anything of that nature, but just a husband and wife making some smart investments, trying to bring life back to an area. So if you will, when you guys see this on your agenda tomorrow, I'd appreciate it if you guys approve it. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Tate.
I
Are
have
you?
one question. Jeremy, it's good seeing you again.
Good seeing you too.
Tell me, I know that you are heavily invested in the Highlands as far as the restoration, basically the rebuilding. Can you just tell me what you're currently working on right now?
Well, currently we bought
Your investment?
Currently, we bought the 400 block of Wichita, the 400 block of Wyandotte, I think the 1600 block, 16 and 1700 block of Magnolia. It's a little bit, right at about 54 units. And so we're currently renovating and restoring that entire area right there by Highland Park. That's no small project. We're probably about 1.5 million in that area alone. We've bought the 100 block of Lister Street. We've brought life back to that area. The 100 block of Lister Street was kind of rough when I first got over there in 2016, but we've renovated 18 homes, and we own that whole 100 block except for probably 3-4 homes. We did renovations in the East Lister block, Egan, Cornwell, East Wichita, and the Stoner Avenue, they just passed, not Stone, I'm sorry, the Wall Street and Vine. They just passed a few lots on Wall Street that they're going to put back into surplus that my wife and I are going to get, and we're going to end up bringing some people in, and we do some smart investing to bring life back, because what happens is you have a lot of squatters in that area, like he was just saying, and they come and they burn those buildings up. Well, I'm speaking to other investors saying, hey, listen, you know, I want to take and I want to redevelop this area. So anything that the parish is willing to put back in the surplus, we're willing to take, and we're willing to revitalize that area. So we got some projects that we're currently working on, and then we have some future projects, which is creating something to bring life back to that Highland area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Liz Swain.
Thank you, everyone. Liz Swain, 416 Cotton Street. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm coming to you today for some help that is very desperately needed downtown. Within the last couple of weeks, we paid for a survey, and we've asked people throughout the area, between about 19 and 100, male and female, and we tried to ask them an open-ended question because we want to know how better to talk to people about downtown. And the question was, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about downtown Shreveport? And it's not the beautiful historic buildings, and it's not the restaurants, and it's not the attractions and the Strand Theater and the Robinson Film Center and the great buildings where you can have a job or go to an office, or the wonderful residential opportunities. It is crime. That is devastating. It is devastating. When we have incidents like we had this past weekend, it reinforces that perception. It just reinforces that perception that downtown is a place to fear. It doesn't matter when we try to tell people that, hey, most of the issues that we're having, that you're seeing on the media, that you're seeing in social media, are in one area late at night. That doesn't resonate with people. They have a belief that it is happening all throughout downtown Shreveport. The issues in our club district, the issues that are happening late at night in a small area, are creating problems for property owners, for developers, for businesses throughout our downtown that are being felt. Many of you, all of you, I believe, got an email this past Friday from the property manager of one of our newer apartment buildings downtown, 72 units, more than $10 million spent on that property. And what she said was telling. She said, "We are home to quite a few owners and residents." She said people have bailed out, have left because of the noise. People have broken their leases because when they moved in, they had no idea about the amount of noise and the amount of disruption that they would have throughout the night on the weekends. We are losing money. Other properties downtown are losing money. Businesses, there's no way really to quantify how many might be choosing to go other places other than downtown, or expand in places other than downtown, or buy in places other than downtown because of the serious issue that we are having at present. Again, this is not just properties near the clubs. This is all of downtown. I ask that you seriously consider the noise ordinance, that you look at it, that you support it for the good of not only downtown, but for Shreveport as a whole, because this ordinance is not just about downtown. It is about our city as a whole. Thank you very much.
Ms. Swain,
Yes.
what did the incident occurred downtown this weekend?
There were dancing in the street. There were arrests that were made. I understand that there were some incidents that there were a number of arrests that police were called, that there were issues with perhaps pepper spraying. Just a scary situation for people who were down there. There were fights. There was public drunkenness in the streets. All of those things, Councilwoman Taylor, that we have had multiple weekends before. The unfortunate thing is that whether or not these happen every single weekend night, they have been happening often enough so that it is a real problem for the perception of downtown, and again, for other businesses in downtown. And we're not pointing at any particular person, but what we are saying is that a noise ordinance that is obviously attracting people to a party, festival, street, dance atmosphere in downtown is creating the perception that downtown is a place where you can come and you can just have a good time, no holds barred. And that is a dangerous thing for any part of our city.
Would that be the responsibility of SPD?
It would, but it would also be the responsibility, Councilwoman, of the business owner. I think that business owners, obviously, we're very close together. Downtown doesn't have big yards in between our businesses. It doesn't have big properties and lots in between our businesses. We share walls. They're called party walls, I think, for a reason. If you're partying on one side, you're going to hear the party on the other. We have residential in that area. We have people who predate some of the clubs residential in that area. We have hotels, we have casinos that people have to come through downtown Shreveport to get to those casinos. We don't want to scare people off from physically driving through downtown at certain areas of night and on weekends. We have apartments, we have businesses, we have attorney offices, we have donut shops, we have all kinds of businesses in that area. It's not just clubs alone. So we've all got to learn how to work together, how to live together in a way that allows these businesses to stay open, but does not negatively impact everything around it.
Mr. Chair. Ms. Swain, has the DBA looked at the noise ordinance? Have y'all met and discussed it? What are the recommendations regarding it?
So the DDA is meeting this week, and we are going to look at the noise ordinance. The noise ordinance came out a couple of weeks ago, and we've all been looking at it individually, and our official recommendation will be made at that point. I'm making a recommendation today as a person who lives downtown, who owns property downtown, who is invested in downtown, but I hope to be back at the next council meeting as a representative of the DDA.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Tim Hook.
Timothy Huck, 415 Spring Street, Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm obviously here to ask y'all please to consider, not postpone, and to approve the noise ordinance. I believe I sent everyone on here plenty of videos from this weekend, so before we get the question of what happened this weekend, there was a big concert, loud music, a couple thousand people on the ground, everyone standing in one place, everyone facing one direction, everyone showing you what they were doing down there. They were all down there for one reason. They were all down there for one place because they're standing there looking at the place. So now we're beyond argument of, hey, what brought them down here? They're all standing in one block or two blocks. They were on Texas Street, the 200 block of Texas Street, and on the 400 block of Spring Street. Nowhere else was anyone at. They were all standing out there, enjoying the entertainment, watching the music. At one point, there was a burst of mace done by the police department because the crowd was so big that my customers that were trying to walk in my building couldn't breathe because they got mace in their lungs. I was still coughing yesterday from it. The police department come up, I sent y'all a video, all the cops turned on all their sirens. What did the DJ do at Hayes? He turned his music up, okay? Instead of saying, hey, let's help disperse the crowd, let's help kind of with this, they turned their music up. The police department turned on all their sirens to disperse crowds. They turned their music up, okay? At some point, something's got to give. Lawless activity is lawless activity, and this is lawless activity. I sent videos to the fire department showing over 700 people on a rooftop that is rated for very few people, nowhere close to that. So at this point now, if nothing's done about that, there's a civil liability on the city for not enforcing laws that are in place. Y'all understand if you overlook and you just neglectfully decide not to enforce what's out there, now there is no neglect because you have seen it. So you can't argue and say, I don't know. I've sent the videos, I've sent them to all the news stations. There is no way for anyone to say, I don't know at this point. There's no way for you to continue to turn a blind eye or to continue to say, this is not what's going on, because it's one thing that is going on. The music is drawing the crowds. I don't ask you to close a bar down. I don't want anyone closed down. I want them to follow the law, and I want to turn the music down. I don't want anyone shut, okay? I'm not saying, hey, go get their liquor license. I'm saying we need a law in place. There's already one in place that's been being violated, but we've chosen that it's not enforceable. Then if we've got a law on the books that's not enforceable, and y'all are up here, we need to put something on that is, for the betterment of the city. Any questions?
Thank you.
Dr. Shalette Holden.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Shalette Holden, 6825 Lambert Street, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71119. I want to address the concerns about what took place in downtown Shreveport over the weekend. I have some concerns about Tim Hook coming before the council concerning the music at Hayes on Texas, as he is a friend of Councilman Gary Brooks. I feel it is continued targeting of my business that was initiated by Councilman Brooks and his targeted legislation. Let's talk about police involvement and police intervention. SPD has had more calls this year at the Cub and Ants, which Councilman Brooks owns, and Phoenix 2.0 and Sandbar, which Tim Hook owns, more calls this year than they've had collectively at Hayes in 8 years. And I said that to say this: I have a commitment to the safety and to the people of downtown. I don't desire to entertain. Yes, we were at capacity. We were not over capacity because Tim doesn't know the capacity of the building, but we were at capacity. So once we got to capacity, we could not allow anyone else in the building. Is that a Hayes on Texas problem? No. That's not a Hazel, Texas problem. That's an SPD problem. That problem is for everybody else who is hired to police the streets. We did what we were supposed to do, and we continue to do what we're supposed to do when it comes to downtown Shreveport and Hazel, Texas. The noise, I mean, there are 4 in the 200 block of Texas. There were at one time 4 nightclubs. So the thought of it being a quiet, peaceful place at night on the weekend is incomprehensible to me. There were 4 clubs there. There are 3 clubs there now. So I'm not sure about the money being lost and all of that, but I want the opportunity, and I've spoken to the city attorney, Marcus. He's given me his commitment to meet with me on Thursday, and I believe Manushka, I have a meeting set with them for Thursday to review the ordinance, so I would ask that you all would table the motion to vote on it before, until I've had the opportunity to sit with them. Tim has allowed the return of Coco Pelli's in downtown Shreveport, a club that has known for all of every violent crime imaginable, but he brought that back to downtown Shreveport.
Oh, you know it's in the chamber,
I'm sorry?
not you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Impacting the nightlife downtown I'm asking that Councilman Brooks recuse himself from voting on the legislation about downtown, and more specifically Hazel, Texas. Impacting the nightlife downtown has the potential to positively impact clubs and lounges owned by Councilman Brooks. It's all money motivated. Councilman Brooks, I guess, now has his friends coming to speak to this group. The event was well attended, as I said, this weekend. There was a line waiting to go, a line of people who couldn't get in. I do know that there were no violent crimes downtown on Friday night. There were no murders, there were no stabbings, there were no shootings. None of that happened in downtown Shreveport. Tim Huck does have plies coming to his place of business on October 13th, which I'm sure will bring a similar crowd.
Dr. Holden. Okay.
Yes.
So you have a meeting with the city attorney as well as Ms. Manushka? Attorney
Thursday, I
Manushka?
do.
Okay. All right.
I do.
Any other correspondence that you want to give to the clerk?
This is not about music, it's about money. That's all I have.
Okay.
Any questions?
Councilwoman Bowman.
I'm sorry?
I have a
Councilwoman Bowman
question.
has a question.
Ms. Holden, when I talked to you and referred to talk to the city attorney, y'all did set a meeting, said next Thursday? Okay,
Yes.
and he did tell you he would postpone it?
He told me that he would postpone it until he had the opportunity to meet with me.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
thank you for that. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair? I don't for you specifically, but I do related to what you're saying. It's more for the administration and the police chief. I tend to agree with her, if they had an event and they were at their capacity and turned these people out, the congregation at that point on the public streets, like we've all discussed, becomes our issue. And I think that's what Mr. Huck was saying as well, that the congregation becomes the city's issue. Where are we at taking care of this? Now, we can talk about the noise ordinance and everything, and if that helped with people dancing and whatnot, but if she was at capacity, she turned the people out that were supposed to be there, that were not supposed to be there due to the fact, but they are congregating on the street. That's on us, and that's on you, chief, and that's on you, mayor. We've got to figure out a way to disperse these crowds. I don't know if maybe it's in the future you start selling tickets to these large events and then people aren't going to try to get in. I don't know what the solution is, but I think that it looked like a mess to me down there at a certain point from the videos that I got.
I might interject, the same thing happens when there's a festival at Festival Plaza and people are trying to get in and out.
I don't disagree with that point, but I'm talking about this particular incident this weekend, and I sent an email to the mayor. I've not had a response from him on the email. Chief, I have not called you because I went to the mayor first, but we've got to come up with a way to disperse these large crowds that are on public property, and it looked like to me the majority of them were on public property. They were on the sidewalks and they were on the streets and not at Hayes. Now, is the music issue and the loudness, that's a different, that we're trying to address. But the overall issue that happened this weekend, I think, is on SPD in the city.
I agree.
That's just my thought. So, I mean, are we doing anything, Mayor? I didn't get a response from my email yesterday at 12.
I believe I sent you an email earlier today. I met with Chief Smith this morning to
Okay.
develop a strategy.
Okay.
I might add, Councilman Butcher, that we did not increase the music with the sirens. I applaud the police presence. We welcome it, and we're very happy to do whatever it is that needs to be done to make sure that downtown Shreveport as a whole is a safe place to live and play.
Well, and I think that there is a level of responsibility with the city. The noise ordinance, I agree with. We need to move forward on that in a way that makes it lucrative for every business. I do believe when Mr. Huck says he's not trying to shut you down, I have to take that at face value. But as a citizen of Shreveport, my constituents in a lot of other areas don't come to Shreveport because of what happens on the streets, and that's not your fault. You should be able to operate your business legally the way that it's, and there's a lot of ambiguity in the noise ordinance as it is now, and that's why I think we're doing this new noise ordinance.
I don't think that we should keep blaming them at that particular point, that they're responsible for that crowd. If they're doing their due diligence at any point in time, if any club owner is doing their due diligence at any time to disperse the crowd to the best of their ability with the security personnel that they have, then that's the role that they're supposed to take. But when they hit public property, that's on us. That's on us as the city of Shreveport. And at that particular point in time, that is when we are supposed to ignite our manpower. That's why we ask for the aid of technology and everything else to be placed in downtown. Same thing we could have had at timeout. When you have a large crowd there off of Mansfield Road. It's the same particular scenario when we go in there and we have that particular buy-in. So I'm with you, Councilman Butcher, because I think at any other point when we enact a noise ordinance, I don't think there's going to be something difficult for any of the clubs to fall in line with. But if we're going in and we're looking and we're saying, okay, well, this is essentially what's occurring right here, then we are in some way targeting this particular club.
Well, and I think to piggyback on what you're saying, I had a constituent that lives in my district that invests all over town, Queensboro, Allendale. He invests a lot of money in the city of Shreveport. I think one time, Mr. Mayor, you represented him on a case. He called me, and he happened to be downtown at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and he said that the club was not the problem. The sidewalks and the street had become the problem, and that the smell of marijuana, drugs, lewd and lascivious acts going on the street. And my question is, if that's going on and the police are there, is it a manpower issue? Is it an issue of where the officers just aren't enforcing? He said there was an officer sitting in an alley with his lights on, just watching people smoke weed, and he said the stench of weed coming out of another bar on the other block was so strong that it was in the air. And to me, that's offenses that could disperse, not just them being in a public place. I may be wrong. I'm not a cop and I'm not a lawyer, but to me, we have to burden a little bit of this responsibility to a certain extent. So that's all I really got to say about it. Thank you for your comments.
Thank
Tim,
you.
thank you for your comments as well.
Appreciate y'all's time this afternoon.
Telephone.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Dr. Holden.
Doctor, just a quick question, just for my own education. What's your maximum capacity?
I'm not sure of the maximum capacity as the
What's the fire
downstairs,
marshal?
upstairs, and rooftop has its own capacity. I don't know the total. I can get that for you and email you, though.
Okay, so what's the fire marshal say is your maximum?
I don't know it. I want to say roughly, I'll say around 700, but I'm not sure, because there are 3 different capacities for the inside, downstairs, upstairs, and the rooftop.
And would you agree that that music definitely attracts the crowd, regardless if they can get in or not?
I would agree that music anywhere attracts people, but I would also add that it's not my responsibility to disperse the crowds.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you.
So I think that people hear music, when I'm downtown, there are cars playing music and parking lots all over downtown, not just where Hazle, Texas is located. For whatever reason, Hazle, Texas is being targeted, but I've heard music coming out of Tim Huck's building. I've seen people standing around his building, but he doesn't record that.
And
I don't either, because I'm not that petty.
Okay, so you haven't had a chance to review the noise
I
ordinance
have not.
at all?
I'm going to meet with Marcus and Manushka on Thursday and review it with them together,
Okay,
which was
thank
the
you, ma'am.
agreement.
Thank you, Dr. Holt.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair? I can kind of concur with everybody was saying. I think the issue is more of the loitering and the gathering. Last council meeting, we had issues dealing in my district at timeout. There is no patio, there is no outdoor, but people, when you see a lot of people, they will gather, they will want to try to have a free party, if you will. So I think we need to show some sense of force to let all citizens know if you're not going to patronize a business, then you just can't continue to loiter. I think that is the issue that we need to address. I think the noise ordinance is separate. It has no reason why people are gathering because they're happening in other areas where there is no patio.
Ms. John Glover?
Good evening. John Glover, 9100 Walker Road, apartment 217, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71118. Often when I come up, I'm here to talk about an agenda item, something that I need clarification or whatever on, but today it's a little different. I live in a city that is in chaos, from the head to the bottom, and it's disturbing. It really is. You know, I wonder what our young folk are really saying about us, the adults, how we just demonstrate ourselves based on whatever the situation may or may not be. My heart is heavy today as I stand here. I'm hurt. I'm hurt. I've been a citizen of this city for more than 45 years, and I have never seen such, what do you call it? Other than havoc, chaos. And it's not always by those of us who stand before you. We get it from those that we entrust to do a job that we hired you to do through our voice. I'm tired of the bickering. I really am. If you know there's an issue that requires your attention, no matter what it is, then you need to come together before you come in here, because this is tiring. We deserve better from the people we trust to lead this city. And it's not just on you all, the mayor is inclusive, because we hired him too, through our voice, through our vote. We said we trust you all enough, even when we didn't know that we trusted you to the level we needed to. We were willing to give you a chance. Now I'm asking that you put aside whatever it is that keeps you in the limelight, because it has nothing to do with the business of this city. I'm sick of it. Get back to taking care of our city. We deserve a better Shreveport. And if you're not going to give it to us, then you need to be man or woman, whomever, and say, no, we will not do what you ask us to do, and allow us to make a decision how we want to deal with this situation. Because again, I'm sick of it. I really am. It is just from every day something new. A young man just lost his life a couple of days ago, 24 years old, in a drive-by shooting. Well, we got time to talk about everything else, but I don't expect you to have the solution for crime, because you're not committing it. But I do expect you to come together, to verbalize, and to help us feel comfortable in a city that is in disarray. We deserve better than what we've been getting here lately. We really do. And you all must do what you need to do. For all of us who profess to be Christians, we need to start demonstrating that God-like attitude and behavior. Thank you.
Jermaine Anderson?
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I just want to express my heartbreak and just this the firing of Sharika Fleming. I think that was wrong. I feel that we all deserve a chance whenever, but I do am expressing my concerns, my heartbreak, basically, for her firing. You know, I feel that was wrong in every way. I feel she should have gotten some type of review or anything of that, which most employers or most people I've seen in states where they go through a formal review before they're fired. Why are they fired? What's going on? Why are you firing me? Stuff like that. So I don't know if that was actually did or what, but I am expressing my hurt about her firing. So that's why I've come up here today. But it also too, gun violence. Our young people are dying every day in this city from the gun violence. Our youth are dying, you know, and it's a sad situation right there, you know. So thank you,
Mr. Anderson. Deidre Robertson.
So I put my name because I'm the adult, but it's actually going to be De'Erica speaking.
So it's the same thing with Miss Victoria Sewell?
Yeah, it's going to be De'Erica Cooks, yes.
Okay. So the girls of Pearls are speaking? The girl Pearls are speaking?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm De'Erica Cooks. I live on 3397 Bond Drive, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71107. And I've been a Girl Pearl, which is Miss Shanerica's nonprofit, for 3 years. And I'm speaking in support of Shanerica Fleming, Miss Shanerica Fleming. She is the most kindest and nicest person you could ever meet. And comes to meet us girls every Wednesday after working for you. Me and her bump heads sometimes, but she's always still there to listen to me when I'm upset. She talks me through my emotions. Why can't y'all do that? I know she stated that she doesn't want her job back, but she didn't deserve to get fired because she didn't want to do something she was uncomfortable with doing. She teaches us never to do things we're uncomfortable with. Young girls like us to look up to you to be fair and lead our city in character and dignity. You failed. Miss Shanerica has a very big heart, and she's a very strong woman. She taught us girls to respect ourselves. If no one loves us, she always told us that God did. Miss Shanerica didn't deserve to get treated the way she did. If y'all all fire people like her, who for you keep? Once again, I'm De'Erica Cooks, and I brought my fellow Girl Pearls with me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cooks. Rudolph Glass.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Rudolph Glass, 1735 Arlington Avenue. I am here to speak on the matter of Miss Fleming. This has touched me in a special kind of way. I have 2 daughters, and just the thought of someone treating them that way really makes me sick. Why was she fired is the first question. I wonder how many more females are subject to this type of behavior. I know that it's more. I just wonder how many. Our councilwoman Taylor has some experience with this type of matter. For those women who are afraid for their jobs, it should be some type of system that would allow them to report these type of behaviors at City Hall, because there are other cases. As I close, I think about the movie Rosewood. I know most of y'all have seen it, but I think about the white middle-aged storekeeper had the young black girl working for him. And it was more than work going on, okay? So that is what I think about. It is very disgusting. Thank you.
Tangia Taylor.
Good afternoon. My name is Tangia Taylor. I am the chairperson of Wise Butterfly, and that is P.O. Box 38863, Shreveport, Louisiana 71133. I'm here today to show my dedication and support for attorney Shanerica Flemings. We, African American women, are tired of being sexually objectified, harassed, intimidated, and bullied in the workplace. And in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. It is 2023, and it's hard to believe that there are evil individuals who still think they can get away with this kind of savage behavior and treatment of African American women. But little did they know they would encounter a courageous, intelligent firestorm by the name of Shanerica Flemings. Attorney Flemings stood tall in the face of adversity while working diligently in a hostile work environment. Though she was being assassinated politically and personally, she pressed on and persevered and provided great leadership for the employees in Shreveport City Council's office. Attorney Flemings is a true reflection of our former Congresswoman, Ms. Shirley Chisholm, our ionic motto, unbought and unbossed. For she stood her ground and never wavered under the intense pressures of bigotry, sexism, and racism. Hence, she represents a standard of every African American woman in the world can strive to achieve. Attorney Flemings, you have our unwavering support. We salute you and we stand with you. Thank you.
Jacqueline Miller.
Good afternoon. Jacqueline Miller, 6207 Nottoway Drive, Shreveport, Louisiana. I am very disturbed by the allegations that took place by Ms. Flemings. I am just disturbed to the core that this could take place in the year of 2023. This is supposed to be a wholesome body, a body of integrity. Yet, this is a stain on this city for you all to do this, for you all to allow this to take place. I don't know Ms. Fleming personally, but it could be me, it could be my daughter, it could be anyone that I love, and I just think that this is going to set this city back. We just had the commemoration of the terrible stain that was put on this city at the Little Union Baptist Church, September the 23rd, 1963. And it looks like we're going backwards. We haven't really progressed. And I'm thinking, what did she do? I mean, what warranted this? And I know I keep hearing that, well, at will. A lot of things are lawful and they are not expedient, but they do not bring about an advantageous culture for this city. So what I would like to do, and I would like for you all to maybe release her unsatisfactory work to the public. Okay. And if you can't do that, I'm thinking about the sexual harassment that was rebuffed by her, and the one who was complicit in not calling it out, and the racial slur that was said in the presence of Black people. What is wrong with you? I think that District B and District G leadership, I think you should resign. I think you should resign. I think you should do this before other options are explored. Thank you.
Terrence Wynn.
Good afternoon. I'm Terrence Wynn, 2828 Willie Mays. I'm here on behalf of Attorney Flemings and the message that our firing sends. I mean, when did no constitute someone getting fired? I mean, no, for a Black woman, it means she's getting fired. That's a harsh message to send to kids that follow that woman, to just Black kids, period. Because it's like we haven't traveled any distance from the racial injustices that we have served in this country. Been there since 1619, and nothing has changed if that happens. I mean, for everybody on the council that voted to fire her, something is wrong. For doing a job, I mean, when you look at Mr. Brooks, what job has he done? He just had 2 people got killed in his district.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we need to be calling out. Point of order.
Okay, I won't call out a name. All right, so we're just gonna speak on incidents. They just had 2 kids got killed August the 12th in one of these councilmen's districts. He ain't made a press conference about it or anything. They had another councilman spoke about someone dancing on a car downtown because it happened downtown. But did that councilman speak about the Black lives that's been lost? We speak about businesses over Black lives. Our lives don't mean nothing to the councilmen. When a woman comes to do a job and you fire her because she don't want to have sex with you, and she can become the N-word, something is wrong with that. But you spoke about just dancing on a car. Did that hurt anybody? It ain't hurt no one. But look at the lives lost. In his district, Martavius Henderson lost his life August the 12th, and Anthony Lee. But you don't step up about that. We got one councilman that speaks up when someone is killed in our district. We can go back to July the 4th. 4 people got killed on Martin Luther King, the Cook Road. This councilwoman, she stood up about that. Even the incident when Martin Luther King, when the liquor store was closed down because of ongoing murders happening right out there. She fought to get it closed down. But what is this councilman doing outside of making sexual advances towards someone and they tell her no, and then he coming back getting the council members to vote this woman out of a job? We speak about unemployment, but you taking the job from somebody that's doing a job. Something wrong with that picture. What message are y'all sending to people? You just had kids coming up here that spoke highly of this woman. But you took her job because she don't want to have sex with the master. Something is wrong with that picture. Thank y'all.
Pastor Gant.
It's a hard act to follow. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, I'm glad to see that protocol has been established and you are not holding people to 3 minutes. Because as a Baptist preacher, it takes me that long to stand up here. Let me say I intentionally did not attend the rally on Friday, not because I was not supportive of Ms. Fleming, but I wanted to stand and look each council person in the face and give you an opportunity to justify your actions before moving to do something else. First of all, I want to share, I believe the word of God. Ecclesiastes says to us in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 through 12, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he has not another to help him up. Again, if 2 lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, 2 shall withstand him. And a threefold cord is not easily broken. My point is, this council is divided. How can 2 walk together except they be agreed? Mr. Mayor, you were elected as our chief elected official. And the thing that disappointed me at the council meeting as I sat in my office was that when all this was going on, I was looking for the mayor to intervene and say, let's drop the temperature. Let's look at what we are doing. I've seen this council on more than one occasion table something till temples settled down and talked about it like representatives of the people. Let me say to you, many of you get caught up. And even though, in a sense, you represent the whole city, you represent those people from that district and their interests who elect you to that position. And you owe to listen to them and see what their desires are. I came to do a couple of things today. Number one, I came to plead with the 4 council persons who voted to fire this young lady. You need to revisit it, and you need to do it quickly. Because if you don't, there are going to be some consequences. And I'm going to be the first one to say, I will lead the rally to go out and have a recall on those who are not functioning with the desires of the people. But you know what hurt me the most? I know Louisiana is an at-will state. I've served on various boards across this city, this country, this state. And most of you know, even when a person, let's say, is guilty in situations, you don't air the laundry in a public setting. And many times then that person is given the opportunity to resign. It helps the person, it helps the entity. But the biggest problem I have, I wonder if one of our black councilmen had said to our previous city clerk, made some advancement and she had accused them of it, would not there have been an investigation? This young lady was lynched. My problem is not whether or not she should have been fired. My problem is she did not receive due process. That's my problem. I listened to her passionate plea. And you cold-heartedly voted to not even to listen, maybe something she said is true. Let's look at it. Even if you put her on we've had policemen stay on administrative leave 2 and 3 years and get paid. So if you thought she was in a position to endanger something, put on administrative leave. But you fired her. My daughter is graduating from Southern University in December. I said, baby, you come? No, Paul, I'm not coming back to Shreveport. You know why? Instead of, the Bible says to train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he would not depart. I've had young people to come to me and say, Pastor Gant, I've served as a state convention president, moderator. I've had the opportunity to influence many young people. But they say, in Shreveport, you all train us, but you don't allow us to do what you've taught us. So our young people leave. They keep on leaving. We have too many retreads in government in Shreveport. My dad told me never buy a retread tire because when it gets hot, it's going to pop off and leave you in a problem. We've got to stop hiring these retreads and give these young people an opportunity if we really want this city to grow.
Thank you, Pastor Gant.
That's my 3 minutes. Now, I saw somebody else had more than 3 minutes.
Probably if they asked them a question.
How can you relate that to Wake Up Shreveport, your last point?
My last point, if you notice, this is not a shirt that I wore made yesterday. I had my suit out, and I hate anybody know I hate wearing suits. I planned to look like a preacher when I came down here today. But then I looked at this T-shirt, and the Spirit spoke to me and said, this is a message that needs to go out to Shreveport, black, white, Protestant, Jew, Catholic. Shreveport needs to wake up. And we need to realize that we are our brother's keeper.
Craig Lee.
Craig Lee, 1112 Prospect, Shreveport, Louisiana.
Silence your cell phone.
I'm passing those out to all councilmen and the mayor, CEO. My comments today are in response to the wrongful termination, and I'm glad that Pastor Gant said it, public lynching of Shreveport City Council Clerk Attorney Shanerika Fleming on Tuesday, September the 12th, 2023 by a 4-3 yes vote from the Shreveport City Council, with council members Gary Brooks, Ursula Bowman, Jim Teleferro, and Grayson Butcher voting to terminate. Though Louisiana is an at-will right-to-work state, there are laws and policies that govern the firing of employees. And no employee, I mean no employee, can be fired on the basis of racial discrimination, gender discrimination, religious discrimination, and definitely not their refusal to sexual advances. Our demands are very simple. The immediate resignations of council members Gary Brooks and Ursula Bowman, the immediate resignation of Ralph Johnson as a Shreveport City Council liaison, and I'm going to be calling this week for a federal investigation of Gary Brooks regarding the allegations made by attorney Shanerika Fleming, where she was asked to draft legislation that would adversely impact an African-American business, Club Hayes, to benefit his white business partner, Tim Huck, owner of the Sandbar, and to uncover details as to attorney Fleming's other allegation concerning Gary Brooks's business dealing with drug dealers in his business venture, Styles Bar. A federal investigation resulted in the arrest, conviction, and incarceration of several individuals involved in the drug trade associated with Gary Brooks, but interestingly, not Gary Brooks. You can call it point of order. This is allegations that Shanerika Fleming made, so you can keep that. The creation of the Diversity Department, Equity and Inclusion to oversee.
Well, these are allegations, and we're restating what had happened, but there's nothing to prove that these allegations are true. And for decorum of the council, I don't believe it's in anybody's interest to be launching allegations that are not true.
These were statements made by Shanerica
I
Fleming.
understand that. We all heard them. We all heard them.
There was nothing
I
proven
know,
to be true by her getting fired.
We all heard those, and if
Okay.
you're doing a federal investigation, that's fine.
Yeah.
But we all heard the allegations, and there's no need for you to repeat them.
No, there was, because we can't ledge an investigation against a ghost. So I'm on the record. And lastly, my point, the hypocrisy of council members Butcher and Telefaro, because both of you sit on domestic violence, sexual harassment, and at the same time, neither of you asked for an investigation into this young lady's allegation. But you sit up here as advocates for domestic violence, and you now allow a female to tell you on record, and you don't even stop to investigate anything. Both of you are hypocrites.
I have a question for you. How are you? When Mr. Gary Brooks said the N-word, he was telling a joke about a Chris Rock show. Councilman Jackson was there also. Are you going to recall him?
Excuse me?
When he made the comment about the N-word, we were at a setting. Councilman Jackson was there with his wife. His wife got offended. Are you going to ask for a recall for him also?
Let me see. So right now you're attempting to justify
I'm not.
why he used, right now, I want to make sure I'm understanding this. You're attempting to justify why he used a racial slur.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
No, well, that's what you just did. So at the end of the day, I'm going based on Shanerica Fleming's claim as to why she was fired, because he didn't give any reason as to why she was fired. She just said the council was headed in a downward spiral. I've never heard that excuse given for anybody to be fired.
I was just making sure we wasn't being biased.
Oh, no, ain't no bias. Because she didn't bring up anybody else's name other than you being there and him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm only addressing this because my name was called, but for the record, when that racial slur was said, I did not hear him. I have stated that already. Once it was brought to my attention, Councilman Brooks and I did have a conversation about it. So I'm not going to state how that went down for the record, but we did have a conversation once it was brought to my attention, and then I told him how I felt about using that word in my presence. My wife was very upset, and she did walk out the restaurant once it was said. Once I got home, we had a conversation about it, and again, Councilman Brooks and I had a conversation about it afterwards in order to address that racial slur. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
For the record, in the spirit of transparency, we've never had a conversation about it, Alan. Never. Your wife mentioned it to me. You've never said one word about it until last Tuesday.
Nisha Walpole. That's it.
Good afternoon. I'm going to be speaking on the behalf of Ms. Nisha Walpole, and she's the secretary of the Queensboro Neighborhood Association. Ladies and gentlemen of Shreveport City Council, I stand before you today to lend my unwavering support to Shanerica Fleming. Having heard her testimony, I have no doubt about the sincerity of her words, the anxiety she endured, the chilling indifference that met her cry for help. Ms. Fleming experienced strikes and accord with me because, like her, I have faced mistreatment, molestation, and the crushing weight of being blackballed during my tenure at one of our esteemed local hospitals. Thank God my aggressor was in prison recently and no one else would be harmed. In my time of despair, I turned to the union to which I faithfully paid dues, hoping they would protect my basic human rights. Much to my dismay, my pleas were met with the same disheartened response that Ms. Flemings encountered. It is high time that someone will, like Ms. Flemings, receive the respect and human compassion in matters such as these that I never did. I stand here today as a voice for justice, not just for her, but for all who have suffered in silence. I call upon the Shreveport City Council to take decisive action. I respectfully request the resignation of Councilmember Ms. Bowman, Mr. Brooks, and Council Liaison Ralph Johnson. As a citizen and taxpayer of Shreveport, I join many others in demanding positive change, justice, and a city council that genuinely represent the people's interests. Our city is in dire need of full restoration, and that restoration begins with accountability, empathy, and a commitment to the welfare of all its residents. Thank you for your time, and I urge you stand with us in pursuit of a better Shreveport. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will have executive appointments to consider on tomorrow. There are no items on the consent agenda for introduction or to be adopted. Mr. Dark, would you proceed with regular agenda legislation?
Resolution 166 of 2021 is the TIF district in Councilman Green's district. That was postponed until tomorrow. What's your pleasure going to be tomorrow, sir?
Well, because we've had conversations with you and also with the mayor about it, we're going to have a date that we can reschedule it.
Okay.
So we're going to I'll have a postponement date on tomorrow.
Yes, sir. 114 authorizes a contract between the city and the Independence Bowl Foundation. We do a number of things to support the bowl. I think this contract goes up into the 50th year of the bowl, so it's a multi-year. You appropriate $140,000 in direct appropriation, and then we do other things to facilitate the bowl. 115 authorizes the mayor to execute a cooperative endeavor agreement with Caddo Parish so we can get reimbursed for the storm damage costs that we had this summer. 116 is the resolution for special legal counsel pursuant to Resolution 109A. I believe the city attorney has procured the services of an attorney, and I talked to you all, I think, a little bit about that last time. 117 certifies compliance with the Louisiana Off-System Bridge Replacement Program. There are certain bridges in the city that are not part of the regular state inspection program that we do the inspections on every couple of years, and this resolution certifies that we actually did that. 118 dedicates the 2100 block of Wyoming Street in honor of Edward Julius Caesar. I believe Mr. Caesar recently passed away, and this is honoring him. 119 is the one that I believe Councilman Butcher talked about a while ago, recognizing Ms. Dyer for her presidency of the Realtors Association. 120 dedicates the 400 block of East 75th Street in honor of Mary-Louise Bell Moore for her work, contributions to Cedar Grove.
Are there any questions or comment on any of these items?
Good afternoon. I just wanted to let you know that Trinisha Jackson Hill, the proposed special counsel, is here today for questioning. She will be unavailable tomorrow. If you had any questions for her, they'd be best asked today.
Okay. Anyone? Yes, sir, Councilman.
To start on 117, this is a list of bridges that we were responsible for inspecting ourselves rather than the state. Is that
Yes, sir. I can get you the list. I don't have it with me right now. Sure. Mr. Edwards did say she was here and would not be here tomorrow, so.
Hey, while she's on her way up, Mr. Chair, just one question about bridges. What about the Linwood Viaduct? Where are we on that?
We have identified the possible costs of a little over $6 million to restore it into a condition where it can be driven on again, and that was presented to the Capital Improvements Committee at its meeting when they discussed streets and drainage, with the idea that likely the state might pay part of that cost, and we might include the other part in a bond issue. That's where we are right now.
Would the railroad help us with anything on that?
I don't know that anyone's asked the railroad. I do know that there are three sets of costs. One, you could open it, but it would be severely weight limited, and we chose not to even pursue that one. The other one is $40 million to tear it down and start over, and we also chose not to pursue that one. So it looks like we have the opportunity perhaps to include that or a portion of that cost in a bond package, with the idea that we have a number of folks at the state level who are interested in helping us fund that.
I just think it's critical to get that open. I actually went that direction the other day and forgot it was closed. And then Wilkinson was closed going down through there because of sewer work going on. And I was just thinking to myself, for ambulances and other things going to the medical corridor, for that area to be as vibrant as we all want it to, that really does need to get some attention. So thank you for the update. And I'm sorry, Councilwoman, for.
Is that Union Pacific? What railroad?
I think it's Union Pacific through there.
Okay. I believe back to Ms. Hill.
I just want to ask specifically what would be in this investigation.
Good afternoon. Well, I think that would be a good question, maybe to ask the city attorney. I have been advised that the city would request my help with regard to reviewing some documentation. I have not seen anything. I have actually been out of the office on maternity leave myself. I'm just getting back, so I honestly don't have very much information for you as it relates to what the investigation entails.
Congratulations on your baby.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I think the public and this body needs to know to make sure that this investigation will be independent of the administration and of this council. I think we want to make sure that you have the full authority to do what you need to do to come to the conclusion that can be verbalized and then pushed back to the public as to what transpired and then how we also move forward independently of the administration and this council. Are you able to speak on that?
I can tell you that I am able and capable of doing that. As far as, again, what the details are, what it all entails, I can't tell you because this is a process that I'm not familiar with. Whether or not I can be independent, absolutely. As a practicing attorney for almost 12 years, I've handled numerous sensitive cases, a number of cases here in the parish of Caddo, number of rapes, number of sexual assaults. I'm one of those individuals that understands that there are going to be a number of allegations made, but we need to rely on what the facts are and solely go on what the facts of those investigations are. So am I able to be independent? Absolutely. I have no ties to anyone here. So if you're asking if I'm capable of being independent, I can do that. As far as what it all entails, I can't tell you that right now because, again, this is not a process that I'm familiar with or have ever done. So.
I believe you're capable. I just wanted to make sure you had the authority to be independent.
Mr. Chair, one last thing, and this may be more for Mr. Edwards than you, but I think one of the things that we were considering when we decided to do this is not necessarily, of course, we want to know the events, but we've pretty much heard them all. I think that one thing that we want is a way to figure out what we can do legislatively as a branch to do better. And I think that's just as important of your job. And Mr. Edwards, we discussed this. This is just as important of the investigation that's going on, for us to be able to have some maybe ideas of what we could do that might be better, that might not put us into this position again. So I'm hoping that that'll be in the scope of work and I'm hoping whatever scope of work you come up with will be shared with the council.
And also, ma'am, I'd like to say congratulations, and it's a refreshing day for me. Nobody likes to be investigated, but I'm glad you're here. I will be voting for you tomorrow because I basically need my name cleared. So I welcome this investigation from the bottom of my heart. I've spent, ma'am, would you stop, Ms. Glover, please? I didn't interrupt you when you was up here, Ms. Glover. I gave you my undivided attention. I didn't lean over and talk to nobody. I listened to you. I felt your pain. During this whole meeting, you all share conversations. That's wrong. When we talk about up here, yes, we have some work to do. But when we talk about out there, yes, we have some work to do. My grandmama said one kindness deserves another. Anytime that you come up to speak, I give you my undivided attention. I don't lean over, I don't talk. Would you just let us handle this meeting in the right way without you leaning over, talking? I give you, you can never say, Ms. Glover. Sir, will you just let me finish, Councilman? I know those are.
Ms. Glover is not on trial here.
No, point of order, Councilman. I'm trying to get a point. This was brought up in a statement. So what I'm doing is clarifying the statement that yes, we need some work up here, but we also need some out there. That's all. Thank you again, ma'am. And I welcome you, and I pray that God will give you that ability to do the job that the city attorney asked you to do. Thank you. You were about to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just wanted to provide a little bit of an answer to Councilman Butcher's question. Yes, whenever the scope of work is sort of ironed out, that document will absolutely be shared. Those instructions and information will certainly be shared with the council, and it is certainly the intention of the city attorney's office once the investigation is concluded and we've got some findings of fact to make some recommendations to the council for what processes and procedures can aid us going forward to prevent this situation in the future.
And I'm assuming also that we're all aware of the subpoena power and all that other things, that all the other things that we have as a council to be able to investigate. Not to say that this is, I just want the public to know exactly what we are capable of doing as a council.
Absolutely. The original resolution, 109A, invoked the charter and section 4.29, which allows for subpoenas. It allows for requests for the production of documents, and that can be under the signature of any member of the council or of any committee. It is certainly the intention to review the documents that are available, or to provide for the investigator the documents that are available publicly, so that she can undertake a review, and then whatever decisions she makes going forward from there in terms of information that she wants to determine and conclude upon, that will be up to her. And assuming that she's voted for tomorrow, to come to a clear conclusion as to the information that's available. If she needs to talk to individuals, she'll talk to individuals. Hopefully, those individuals will be willing to do so voluntarily, and if not, then we can, go down the path of trying to secure some subpoenas. I don't anticipate that will be a problem. So hopefully we can get this process rolling.
Thank you, and also thank you for pronouncing my name correctly.
Anyone else? Mr. Dart, would you proceed with introduction of resolutions not to be adopted prior to October 10th, 2023? See, there's none. Ms. Dart, would you proceed with introduction of ordinance not to be adopted prior to October 10th, 2023?
Yes, sir. Ordinance 112 declares a public emergency in connection with the emergency repairs to one of the main high service pumps at Amos plant. This actually happened in July. We did not believe at the time that the cost was going to be over the $150,000 threshold. Turned out it ended up at $161. So this is being brought to you just as an abundance of caution to make sure we're doing everything the right way. The next group of them are all zoning ones. 113 amends various parts of the UDC to primarily to put up some new definitions and give the MPC more enforcement ability on signs which are either abandoned or deteriorated, otherwise just generally not in use. They felt like they needed to clarify that. 114 amends UDC again, and this one is for what they call queuing and stacking requirements. In other words, making sure that drive-throughs and ATM drive-throughs and those things have enough room for the cars that are likely to use them to not end up in the public streets or blocking other things. 115 it's kind of a catch-all. Again, it's a UDC amendment that defines a little bit better what waterfront property is, defines what some tall exterior lighting is, and makes absolutely clear that the MPC does not enforce private agreements among property owners. 116 is zoning case 23-123C, property on the east side of Lakeshore near Dill League. This was residential to C1. I think the use apparently is for a shelter housing in an existing house. MPC, the original applicant applied for a residential class. MPC thought it was better off to be C1, so that's what they unanimously approved. This is in Ms. Bowman's district. 117 is case 23-155C, property at Cotton and McNeil in the downtown area. The property owner wants to take an existing building and use it for storage. It is a historic building. MPC approved it 6-2. DDA did not. They did not support this particular item. And 118 is C23-155 Linwood near 83rd Street, residential to commercial. I can't tell exactly from the description, but it looked like some sort of retail store was going to be proposed to put in that one. They applied for C2. It was actually approved at C1. MPC approved at 6-3, and this is in Councilman Green's district.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on any of those items? Ms. Dart, will you proceed with ordinance on second reading and final passage?
Yes, sir. 74 has been postponed several times. This is the encroachment on King Place. Mr. Butcher, do you have an update on?
No, I was actually going to ask you for one. Is Mr. Furlong and maybe Mr. Clark here to answer a couple of questions?
Clark is here, I believe. Mr. Furlong is not. I do know that there has been some commitment made to do some of the things that the property owners thought they wanted to make sure of turnarounds and all that sort of stuff. I don't know what the timeline for that is.
I think that what I'm looking for, and this particular ordinance is more of a encroachment more than an abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Mr. Clark, I think that this has to come to y'all in a certain time frame. My concern is we're going to make some repairs down there which should have been done years ago. From what I understand, I want to know what those repairs are going to be and the commitment from the administration to get that done. I guess is what I'm asking for maybe tomorrow before we vote on this. And should we be voting for the encroachment or should we be voting for an abandonment in anticipation of the repairs that are going to be done? Does that make sense, Mr. Dart?
I can't speak for Mr. Clark. I mean, we can certainly give you the commitment. I can get Patrick to come here tomorrow if he's in town, and one way or the other. I know he sent an email.
He did.
Maybe last week that I believe expressed the commitment. I don't know that it had timelines on it, but we have the funding to do it. It's not a big project. So.
I think that are we doing this encroachment in place of the abandonment for right now, and then once the improvement is completed, then we go in and do the abandonment? There's just a lot of questions on both sides about which direction we're going, and I apologize. I tried to call Patrick today, and I tried to call Gary, and both of them are
Gary's out of town.
out of town too, yeah, so.
Alan, do you have any clarity?
The abandonment will be on the MPC's agenda next month. The encroachment just allows this company to encroach into the city's property with all of the stuff in front of the property. If you remember,
Yeah.
there's a parking lot, but all of that's on city property.
But this will be a stopgap, short-term fix until and then we'll do the abandonment,
You
and
do
then
abandonment next week, next month, I'm sorry.
and then the construction. Do you feel like that will start by the first quarter of next year? I mean, we have funding for it, or?
That would be something I would have to ask Patrick. I don't think there's a whole lot of design work to do here. I
No,
mean,
there's not. There's
Obviously,
very little.
it's pretty much just, you're going to put a little turnaround there. And,
Right.
You know, obviously, I'm not practicing engineering, but that's really what they're doing, so. I'll try to get Patrick to come tomorrow, or at least to communicate to you beforehand if that works better.
That's fine. Just I need some clarity to be able to tell both parties kind of the direction we're going. My understanding was that we were going to do this as a way to assure the purchase of that property, that at least that would be usable until such time as we were able to make the corrections to the street.
The only question I would have is if MPC were to somehow not act favorably on that request, where would we be?
That is a good question. Where would we be if they didn't act favorably on it? Would it come back to us for an appeal?
Still comes to you.
Okay.
Okay. That's
But I wouldn't see any reason why.
I don't think they will, but it will come to you.
I mean, that, for the rest of the council, what happened is, this probably was outside the city several years ago. There is a cul-de-sac that was never finished, and so the city right-of-way goes right up next to a commercial building. So they've been parking on it for years, but it's impacting the property owner at the end of the street. If we were to abandon that, then they could stop traffic from coming in. It's a real mess. So the fix, after having several meetings, is for us to go ahead and just pave the other side that wasn't finished to give trucks a way to turn around. And we've also posted signs at the end of the street saying, private property, do not enter. But essentially the building is useless and worthless because there's no parking, because the city right-of-way goes right up to the front door. So it's a poor design that probably the city had nothing to do with. It was probably a parish issue, and we just inherited it. So this is kind of taking care of it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Mr. Clark, before you go, would you explain 118?
Is 118 the retail goods establishment? So what is 118? I think 118 is a retail goods establishment in your district, Councilman Green.
Yes, sir.
It is the application for a dollar store. It's a rezoning application that the future land use map designated this property as commercial in nature, and the MPC board voted to recommend the changing of the zoning from residential to commercial in order to provide for that dollar store. I think the property belongs to Peaceful Rest Baptist Church, and they're selling it to this particular operation to do the dollar store.
Have they had a meeting with the residents in that area?
They had a meeting with the residents. I don't remember just offhand how many residents attended, but they did have a neighborhood participation plan meeting to discuss what they were doing. If I recall, there was no opposition at the MPC hearing for the rezoning. It looked suspect of spot zoning, but when we reflected on the future land use map from the master plan, that area was designated to be low commercial.
And what was your opinion on this, Clark?
My opinion is what the board recommended, and that the land is basically undeveloped, and it is quasi a food desert, that we continue to hear that terminology in certain areas of the city. And this will be a minor asset to that community in order to get some retail goods in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Any other questions or comments on any of these items?
So we've got a bunch more.
Mr. Dark, would you proceed with ordinance on second reading and final passage?
We'll have a recommendation on 83 tomorrow. This is the one from the parish. They're 75,000. And we have a whole series of sort of fall cleanup budget amendments. 93 is for the general fund. This one appropriates the storm damage revenues and expenses. Our net costs a little over 800,000. The state's going to pay all the rest of the essentially 3.2 million. 94 amends the general fund to provide more funding to the solid waste fund. Some of that is the storm damage funding from the state. Some of it is additional general fund, so the fund will balance for the year. 95 revises general fund revenues, reduces net revenues 16.6 million, mostly because fund balance was less than we had originally assumed, but it also does increase the number of revenues for oil and gas and sales tax and EMS and a few other things. Just understand that although this one and several others, 94 and 106, also are going to reduce the reserve, the budget we'll present to you next week will include an estimate that we will end this year at about 25 million. So we're not asking you to do anything that I think is foolish at this point. 96 amends the budget for the mayor's office to move some money from salaries into contractual services and materials and supplies. 97 amends the finance department budget so that we can basically properly account for the funding we spend to collect delinquent property taxes instead of netting it out of revenue. Again, it's a no net cost to the general fund. 98 amends the budget for the Human Resources Department. It will have an amendment tomorrow. The original budget ordinance called for about 30,000 in furniture because the benefits office is moving into new space, and what they have is not particularly good stuff. We're also going to do an amendment to give them additional 5,000 because they're a little bit concerned. They would like to do what some of the other offices in the building have done and have a little bit of front door camera and security, and that's what that amendment is for. 99 amends the budget for the fire department. This is a fairly small amendment, moving 50,000 from salaries to contractual services for EMS. 100 amends the budget for the police department. It's moving about $500,000 from salaries into other places. There's an amendment because I made a mistake on the first one, had it going into the wrong places, and we fixed that and sent it to your clerk this morning. I think it's a couple $100,000 into supplies, 300,000 into contractual services. It's all essentially vehicle maintenance money. 101 is the city marshal's budget, moving money out of salaries into contractual services and supplies. 102 is city courts, moving money from salaries to contractual services. 103 is IT, moving 183,000 from salaries to pay to replace the backup storage data that a lot of our city applications are running on before it completely crashes on us. 104 moves money in property standards from salaries to supplies to pay for postage and fuel. 105 moves money from salaries in public works to pay for under budget electricity and for contracted vehicle maintenance. I think I'm going to have an amendment on that one tomorrow to make the transfers a little bit smaller. I've got to work on that one to get back this afternoon. 106 is probably the complicated one. It's SPAR's budget. We're actually having to add money into their budget that we can't fully take from salaries because they've had a fairly long series this year of building catastrophes of one form or another, either systems that have completely failed or other major things that we do. And we're actually going to have an amendment to that tomorrow because in the process of putting all this together, we realize we've had a fairly significant contract for the water remediation in Millennium after the flooding that happened in the early part of the summer, and we will be appropriating the insurance part of that, which is $500 and something thousand and the $445,000 that we actually have to pay to do all that. 107 amends the solid waste fund by adding the money to, for storm damage costs and to cover the revenue shortfalls. And basically, this is a companion to the general fund one earlier. 108 moves about $2.6 million in the water and sewer budget from salaries to cover mostly unbudgeted costs for treatment chemicals and electricity. Both of those were pretty substantially under budgeted for this year, and we're trying to have the budget match what we think we're going to spend. 109 is pretty much the same thing in airports. We're moving money from salaries into paying utilities and telephone costs. It's about $400,000. And the last two are the noise ordinances, which I assume from the discussion earlier, one of you will ask to postpone tomorrow.
Thank you. Are there any questions on any of those items?
So all of these are going to be for the upcoming 2023 budget, correct?
Excuse me?
This for the upcoming.
This is all 2023, yes.
Okay. So the other projects, Mr. Mayor, that you spoke with us about, that's going to be separate and apart?
That
from
is actually the ordinance that we're asking you to add tomorrow. That's the capital budget amendment, trying to appropriate some of the ARP money.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
On 101, I was looking for a list. Everything else lists exactly what these are being moved for, supplies and things like that. Do we have any idea what those are going to be used for?
Let me see what my notes say. Excuse me, 101, Marshall?
Yep.
He's moving 20,000 to fuel and 35, I think, to pay a utility bill that wasn't budgeted. That's what, or a phone bill that wasn't budgeted. I can check and be sure, but that's what I believe it is.
If you could get me that, I want to kind of know what the phone bill, a $30,000 phone bill, I thought they had city phones over there.
City phones still have city bills, and AT&T and all those nice folks. We are actually, one of the things that you'll see when we get to budget time later this fall is IT is going to be making some proposals to do some things differently and try to get rid of some of the last of the analog phones and the things that really are eating our lunch bill-wise. They actually have a capital project that we can repurpose a little bit for that. So that's something that we're trying to take a hard look at. Airports got the same problem. Airports has got old analog phones that apparently they think they have to keep for FAA reasons, and we're trying to figure out a way to replace those because the bills are, now that AT&T is really kind of wanting to get away from that, they charge you rather dramatically.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Dark, if this is added on the agenda on tomorrow for the capital projects,
Yes, ma'am.
this is going to be voted on in 2 weeks?
It could be, yes.
Okay. So I have some other questions in reference to some of those projects, especially when it comes to streets.
Okay. We'll be glad to try to answer them.
So, Mr. Dark,
Yes, sir.
do you think it would be best if we get our questions answered before you add it? Tomorrow, I mean, if we don't have a unanimous vote, then it won't be added. So do you think that we should wait until we finish gathering the information that some council members are interested in?
That's actually kind of your call. We were trying to get some of these things started because we've got some fairly significant projects we think most of you are supportive of, and we want to try to get those underway. We can certainly answer, I think, most of the questions that you have in the next couple of weeks, and if we don't get them answered, you can postpone it at that time. I mean, just trying to,
I think for me, it's the breakdown of the streets and which streets would be repaired.
Well,
Hold on just a minute. Sir, we ask that you not haul out in the chamber anymore.
Okay, well, let me try to give you the short version of.
Sir, I ask that you not haul out in the chamber. Sir, I ask that you not holler out anymore. I will have you. Let me make sure I can hear. Okay. One more time. The next time I'm going to ask that you leave out of the chamber.
Ms. Taylor, what I can tell you is that what we have, and I believe Patrick may have sent you a list last week, what we've tried to do in part of this ordinance is essentially provide enough money where each district would have about $700,000 for projects, and we were going to do our best to let you work with the city engineer to pick which ones you thought were your highest priorities.
I think it's kind of hard when it comes to streets. I'll just say especially for those of us who have streets in the inner city. Because I do know, like Councilman Bowman and I have streets that back up to one another, and where there may be a project or where she may want to get this particular street done, and I may have another one in my district that needs to get done. There may be a priority, and that in some given points that will she not be able to get her street done because it's not a priority in my area. That's the difficulty sometimes in going in and say, okay, you have this amount of money and going in and doing this. And when you divide it up versus we're looking at what the worst streets are within our district that need our undivided attention. It's hard to divvy up and say, let's give $700,000 to each council member and you get a street. I may have one street that's $300,000 and then a number of other streets that at this particular point that may not cost that much. So it's not going to be equitable in that point, or whereas in Southeast Shreveport and sometimes in your district, Councilman Butcher, you may not even have that particular many streets that would need $700,000 worth of repair. That's what I'm saying. When we have those streets that back up to each other, I take for instance like Lakeshore Drive, we may have some spots on there and some parts are in Councilman Brooks' district, some are in Councilwoman Bowman's district, some are in my district. And so we don't want to say, well, you got this block over here that's done and you ride down smooth and then bam, you tear up your front end when you get to my section.
Well, that is part of what the city engineer's responsibility is in working with you to when he finally sees what you think is important, to then point out if it comes to that, okay, we have some, here's a possibility of something we might want to do differently. We've pretty much tried to give Patrick some autonomy to work with you and try to, work with you and try to get to the streets that are the highest priority for you. I will say that I do believe every one of your colleagues has at least that much in street work that needs doing, because we hear from them pretty regularly.
I don't think the argument, I could tell you right now that my colleagues and I have much more than that is doing at that particular point in time that we need for streets. Because if I go and take MLK alone, I could take all of their money and go over here and fix at this particular fix streets in my area. I have a number of streets that I have in Allendale that I'm looking in and picking and choosing to see which one is which, because I think that all of us want to make sure that I'm not speaking for the councilwoman or Councilman Green, but if you travel down the main thoroughfares of our street, why wouldn't we want Lakeshore Drive to be smooth all the way till it reaches the parish end? Or why would we not want Curtis Lane to be smooth all the way until we reach the end? She has one side that's hers, another side that's mine, but then we have interior streets in our area that need attention as well, and so we devote so much money to this part over here. How are we supposed to fix? If I have Abbey, Looney, Anna, Exposition, all of these streets right here that are in the worst condition, or Bobbitt, or what I see in North Highlands and other areas, it's pretty difficult to go over there and say that, especially when our streets and our districts butt up to each other just like that. So that's what I'm saying. I think this was an issue a while back, at that particular point in time when Councilwoman Bowman, Joyce Bowman, was on the council, and when she had to go out there and work, and they looked at Bonkum Road, and how do you go and you navigate that particular process. That's what makes it very difficult for us when you say, okay, here's the money, we're going to give each one of this all the same amount of money in our district, when at the same time, some districts require more than other areas because of the nature and the conditions of our streets. So I'm not knocking what you're trying to do. What I'm saying is it is very difficult at that point, because I still have streets in my district that are not up to city code.
Well, here's a couple of things just to respond to that. Number one, on the big arterial kind of streets, one of the things that we are trying to push the Citizens Committee to look at, and that was actually presented in a couple of streets by Public Works is that in order to not do what you're talking about with a little tiny bit here and a little tiny bit there, the arterial streets cost so much more to get done. Those are likely to be suggested bond issue projects. And we would strongly encourage all of you to, if you have projects, whether they're streets or something else in your district, to try to make those needs known to us, because we're trying to put together a master list of projects that will include what was presented by department heads, what will be presented at those 4 listening sessions, plus whatever input you all have, so we can begin to say, okay, here's what the universe is. We also will have another opportunity for you after the first of the year because there'll be some additional money from the 2024 Streets Fund. So that you, in effect, you've got two shots at that part of the money, plus whatever we can secure into if we're successful in a spring bond issue. So I think we're trying to work with you as well, because we understand that the Hollywoods and the Kennedys and the Lake Shores and the Juelas, those are not likely to be things we're going to pick up in a regular maintenance budget, because there's a lot more of them. Some of them we're fortunate enough we've got some 80-20 money on. Some of them we're not. And so it's important, I think, for us to try to work with you on some of those big streets, because otherwise we won't get it done.
Yeah, and that's why I think that, again, for Mr. Furlong, even when you say that you give us that money, we look at those main thoroughfares, because the bond issue is the luck of the draw. That's going to depend on if the citizens approve it or not. So then if they don't, then we're back at ground zero. What I'm saying is that, let's just say, I'm going to just go back to Curtis Lane again. If we go over here and I'm just using this as an example, even though it's not a main thoroughfare is still a main thoroughfare. And let's just say, for instance, if I said, that's a priority street for me, and Councilwoman Bowman said, well, that's not a priority street for me because I have this street over here. How do we navigate that particular process? Because we both share these streets. We have several streets that we share. And I'm not looking at the constituents in that area to not receive what they need and having fresh streets as well as going in and neglecting ours. So that puts me in the catch-22 when it is like that, versus when we were doing this back in 2019, we had whatever the computer system is to go over there and look and examine our worst streets and then take them from there. And then when we look at that particular list, we can examine that, because at this particular point in time, I don't know what listing that you all have in the meetings with the bond committee. But from what I'm told, it's just like 3 streets, and maybe that's just a start in District A. And I can tell you, I got a plethora.
Well, here's what we've kind of told the committee, and what I think you need to be aware of as well. Streets is going to be the hardest one of the bond propositions to put together, because you could put about 4 propositions together and still have stuff left. So it's a matter of trying to come up between staff and what the public wants and what you think is important, trying to come up with, as good a representative list as we can. But I think the arterials and the sort of major collector kind of streets that you've been talking about today are things that are going to almost have to be bond projects if they're going to get done. The little neighborhood streets that you're talking about, the Abbeys and the things like that, those are the kind of things that our regular streets program and some of this art money, that's pretty much the only source we have right now for those. And then the question will become, in the bond discussions, is, okay, how far into the neighborhoods do we want to try to go to try to at least do some streets? But I don't think we know yet quite how that's going to play out. But I do know that the committee's job will be a lot harder, I think, on streets. My suspicion is that when we have the 4 listening sessions, most of the comments will be, my street needs work. They're not going to come in and say the water plant needs work. So,
Councilwoman Bowman.
Mr. Dark, I have the same regards, because what happened in the past, that's why we're in the situation we're in. Once you give money where it's not needed, the little small streets might not matter to you, but if you live on that street and you drive your car and you tear your car up, it's important. But one of my issues is, what about the streets that was supposed to be fixed from last year's budget. We still have some of those that are not fixed.
I know that there's still, I know they've gone out to bids with some of them. There's still some to be done, and I can get Patrick to make sure that he can tell you about when those are supposed to come out. I mean, the ones you're talking about in this ordinance we're talking about now, these are things we're gonna do next year. I mean, these are not things
I
that
know,
will
I
get
know, and that
designed.
is a problem, but what Councilwoman Taylor was saying was, that's how we got to the point where streets in our districts are so bad, because money was allocated to people that didn't need the money. It don't seem fair, but we spent all this money for this machine to show us from worst to bad.
And that's what
It-
Patrick giving you, the
Yeah,
list,
but
the
it's
list that
not-
you're gonna get is.
It's not working that way, Mr.
his-
Dart.
Well, the list that Patrick has put together for each of the council districts is actually the worst off that pavement index. Now, that does not necessarily mean that you will consider those streets the worst, but you know your districts better than the machine does.
Right, but I'm not an engineer. These come from an engineering report, so I'm relying on the streets he tell me. But like I said, that's how we got to this issue right today, where we have all these streets in certain areas that hadn't been fixed. I think that we need to regroup on that and maybe don't even put it on there for now and come back in 2 weeks and discuss. But I do have an issue with streets in my district that we've already had money allocated for that hadn't been fixed.
And I understand that. Our thought was that we really did not want to have to try to explain to one or two of you why you didn't get any streets and one or two of you also did. This is one of those rare shots where we thought we had the opportunity to try
Right.
to try to do something where each of you could say, the worst one or two or three in my district we were able to do with this money, the worst however many we'll be able to do with next year's street money, and then we get to talk about arterials and collectors with bond issue, because there is, the need is way beyond what any of us are, able to find right now.
Right, right. But in the spirit of transparency and holding people accountable, we need to figure out when those streets that we got allocated last year will be fixed. So we can, we don't manage, Mr. Furlong, you do. So I'm gonna give you the opportunity to work on that so we can move forward on that. And I think as far as putting this on the agenda, I think we need to wait until we can come to,
Well, then we'll do that, because obviously if any of you believes that, then it's not gonna get put on, and we can certainly work with you. Just understand, I can't print any more money than what we have for the street work we have. We have, the other projects that we have in that list are things like Ford Street that have been a citywide need for quite a while, because of the fact that there's water and sewer under the street, and state or the parish or whoever's gonna work on it can't do anything. So, I mean, we've tried to make a balance there. We're trying to, but, we will be happy to work with you. And by the time we reintroduce this, Patrick should be able to send you your list, because we sent Ms. Taylor hers because she's the first person that asked.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, right. Mr. Mayor, all I know is when you became mayor and you met with Councilwoman Taylor and I, and we told you about some streets that we had that had not been complete, all I know is however you talked to Patrick then, you need to talk to him like that again, because I got more streets fixed then in that short time than what I had waited for 4 years. That's all what Councilwoman Taylor is saying, Councilwoman Bowman is saying, is that what we are hearing now, we heard that for 4 years and nothing got done.
And I think the other projects that we have that, are pertinent, if we have to move those particular dollars for what we're talking about on streets, we can do that and vote on others that we have. Because I still have some questions on the Ford Street piece and what the state is giving, yada, yada, yada. But just as it is important to you about, what it is that you need to get done, that's the same thing that's important to us within our districts about our streets, because that's what we hear all the time, how raggedy our streets are, was tearing up the front end. And so we forced to the point to I get ready to say that I'm choosing this street over here versus this street over here. And again, because even in our interior parts of our community, we still have streets that back up to each other's districts. That's a difficult journey.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, I think the takeaway that I've gotten from this conversation, which I think is good, is one comment that Mr. Dark said, and that we'll never have enough money to fix all of them, and that's very, very troublesome. I hope that even in my district, and you're right, Councilwoman Taylor, I don't have the needs that your district has. I do have a few streets that I bombard them about on a daily basis, that some of them were annexed 30 years ago that have never been resurfaced. But as my district begins to age, when we're not on this council anymore, when my district begins to age and all of these developers that have developed these neighborhoods and now we're responsible for them, we're going to have a plan, and that's real concerning to me to hear you say, and I appreciate your honesty, that, we can't fix them all. But in this bond issue, if we're going to support a bond issue, and if I'm going to get out there and sell it, I want to be able to tell my people, look, we have a plan going forward of how we're going to take care of these streets. Because it hadn't been done, and it's not your fault. I mean, you're just coming in trying to clean up. It's a problem that we've been dealing with for 20, 30 years. I mean, I've got Norris Ferry Road that was annexed in 1993 that has not been repaved except for parts since then. And I mean, it's a major thoroughfare. So I hope in the bond, and I'm saying this more for the bond, not for what we're talking about, but in the bond committee, please tell them that any of these feeder streets, Jewela's horrible, Linwood's horrible. We have a viaduct that's not even open. We've got, I was up in MLK the other day. I mean, you've got some streets up there like Lanier and all that. I mean, it's horrible. So I hope that we can collectively in this bond, if we're going to all support it and we're all going to get behind it, let's get these needs fixed that we need, and then let's have a plan in place to monitor these streets. Because, I've got a street now that's in Councilman Jackson's district, Chinkapin Drive off of Ellerby Road, that is a one-lane road that people are having to go off into yards to get in and out of. And Gary and I have been talking about it since we started. We have the back part of Slack Industrial Park, which a lot of that is private back there, but there are businesses that have come in, United Tile, some other businesses have come in now, that is gravel. And we're asking people to come into Slack Industrial Park, and a lot of that's buildings we own, and you have to drive down a gravel road to get to it. So we have a huge picture, and I just hope that you will talk to the bond committee and tell them, look, streets, when we're talking about streets, we need a comprehensive plan that includes every district, but the districts that, the major thoroughfares like we're talking about. Because if not, it's only going to get worse. So,
The committee is very clear on a couple of things already, and they don't really necessarily have anything to do with exactly which projects and exactly what size bond issue. But when you talk about water and sewer, line maintenance, and we talk about street maintenance, those are things you can't fix with a bond issue. You can do some work, you can do the biggest stuff, but if you're serious about all those other streets, you need to be looking at something other than entirely relying on whatever we can come up with annually or a bond issue.
Well, and that was my point. We could do the bond on the major thoroughfares like we're talking about, like Jewela, Linwood, I'm assuming, and hopefully there'll be some match money, you said, that we could use for that. But I want us to get those fixed, the basics fixed, and I think I'm just echoing what you said earlier, and then let's come up with a comprehensive plan of how we maintain it going forward, but also how we get these feeder streets taken care of. And I don't know, I mean, that's, y'all are the administration. You just need to come to us and tell us this is what we think needs to happen, and we'll try to find the money. I mean, you tell us where the money is, and we'll try to approve it. It basically is what I'm saying. So,
I also do think that you would do your districts a great plus good service if the streets that you are the most interested in, please let the bond committee know. You can send those to us, and I'll make sure they're forwarded to everybody on the committee. We want to make sure that the master list includes as much of those streets as we can. I mean, we can't say, there's not a line item for every street in MLK, which is what I know you'd probably like us to do, but.
You better get busy.
Well,
Yeah, you already know, I have MLK, I have streets that still do not meet city code from the annexation in 1978.
I understand that.
That's what I'm dealing with right there. So for me to go over and say, oh, should I go with you over here versus you that I see right here? I can go down one street and I can tell you all the grass that has grown and you don't even know if it's the street where somebody can barely get out of their driveway that they're driving out, and it's a city street, you know, and they pay their taxes and this is what they're looking at. So again, when we have these particular streets, and just as Councilwoman Bowman said, I'm still waiting on Thomas E. Howard, Arrow Drive, I'm still waiting on those particular streets right there to go over here and get done. And so here we go again with more streets, and when some people don't understand that it takes literally 2 to 4 years to get these streets done. And what we're accounting for with that, when Mr. Furlong sent us the list, I could go, and probably other council members can go and look at that and say, well, I could do at least 4 streets over here, because the list that he sent me, I have one street that's $325,000. I have $700,000, so what do? So do I take all of the streets that you say right here that are the worst, when I know I have Eddie Street in North Highlands and Bobbitt over here that hadn't had any maintenance to it and it's tearing apart? Or do I look at the long crack that I see in Fifth Street where it's getting ready to cave in at this point? Or do I make a decision to go over here? It is very difficult to turn around and do, and all of these are interior streets. They're interior streets within the neighborhood where they drive down. So I can tell you for sure, we've driven them all and done hopscotch with them too. And Councilman Butcher, you've seen them.
Hey, I didn't even think about Arrow Drive up in there going back.
Arrow
to
at
that
least is
industrial
funded.
park.
That's
Goodness gracious.
And I need to see where the status of that one is, because I know there are 2 or 3 that were fairly large ones in the spring, but there are also some sidewalk and some reconstruction stuff they need to get let as well. You know, the bottom line though is at some point, someone is going to have to choose. And that's the hard part, because every one of you is going to have, if we had $100 million in a street bond issue, if we had $100 million that went to the voters in the spring, every one of you would have left out streets you dearly want to have done. So we really do need your help prioritizing it, even though it is extraordinarily painful for you to help us do that, because otherwise you don't really want the engineers choosing which ones are the most important to you. They can help you say, okay, the pavement index says this is worse or whatever, but I think at some point we really are going to at some time just come say, look, here's the big list. It's $250 million. We're not going there. Okay, what can you help us prioritize? Now, what you can do clearly, and I think you're saying, is that, you know, you want to make absolutely sure that as many of the big streets get taken care of. Then it becomes a question of how much money is there for everything else, and so that's what we'll be trying to work with you on.
And actually, what I'm saying is this: if we got $12 million for streets, divided among 7 equal, whereas Councilman Butcher says he need maintenance for his, put his maintenance money in a pot so that nothing else will touch that, but when it comes time for his maintenance, the money will be there, already there. With us that need streets fixed now, then let's do the process to take our portion of that amount of money and fix our streets, versus saying, well, over here, I'm going to give $100 million, and over here, I'm going to give $500,000. That just doesn't balance. I think whatever money we got for streets at this particular time should be divided into 7, and all of us get equal. If you got a street that requires more than that, you have a choice to fix half of that street or fix another street. But I just think it ought to be shoved out equally. And then by the time that we get to the bond proposal or whatever, then we can do more. But right now, I just think we need to do with what we already got. Like Councilman Butcher say, his just need maintenance on up the road.
No, I need one really,
Okay,
really
well,
overlaid.
well, you would do that one and then put the other money in for maintenance.
Well,
But,
just understand, that's what that ordinance did for streets. It in fact took a certain allocation and split it 7 ways. You know,
Not from what the mayor showed us, one
well,
street.
there's $4.9 million in there for streets completely.
No, that's not the sheet we got. One street is gonna be about 5
Well,
million.
That's Ford. Oh, well, I'm sorry,
That's Ninth
that's,
Street.
That's Ninth Street.
Yes, sir.
Ninth Street is an 11-year-old promise that it is time to keep.
Yes,
And
sir.
if we're going to have any chance at all of selling a bond issue next year, it is not a good idea to have project laying there that we don't have money for.
Well, but before, Ninth Street was in the bond proposal before, and they turned it down.
No, I thought it was off of an old bond.
Ninth Street was a 2011 bond issue project that, for a whole series of reasons that I don't think I had anything to do with, fortunately, didn't get done. And it is now, the question is, are we ever going to do it? Well, our position was that the ARP money was a good way to do that. And it's 9 now.
I think that the way I understand it, Mr. Dark, is since that was a bond issue and whoever dropped the ball, however long ago it was, now the price has gone up to $9 million, but it hurts our bonding ability if we don't take care of bonded projects. Is that right?
The Ninth Street is the last 2011 project that was not done. It was our belief that that was a good use of this one-time ARP money to try to get it where nobody could come to a bond issue meeting or talk about when it came election time to say, he didn't do the one that was 12 years old. I think that's a good use of the money. I mean, obviously the council can vote on, which way the council wants to go, but we thought that was a useful and beneficial for our long-term prospects project to do.
I've been here in Ninth Street for 5 years.
And if
You know,
you
at
live in
least since I've
District
been
C,
here.
you've heard it longer than that.
Yeah, I know, y'all have heard it a lot longer, but I mean, since I've been sitting here for the 5 years, we have this discussion about once every 6 months about Ninth Street. And, I mean, I guess I understand where y'all are coming from, and I think that's what people are hesitant about the bond, but that's a different.
It actually, in a lot of ways, when we were talking about streets in the spring, there were a couple of streets in District A that Ms. Taylor felt as strongly about, I think, as the folks in District C feel about Knight. You can, at some point you have to decide. I mean, I'm sorry? Yeah, I understand, but I mean, you had a couple that you were extraordinarily strong about. Yeah. But I think we are somewhat vulnerable if we have the opportunity to fund something that was a 12-year-ago promise and don't do it. I think there are going to be folks who say, how do we believe you'll ever keep those? And that's something that we considered when it was time to try to decide what to do with some of this ARP money. Obviously, you can have a different opinion, but that's why we did it. Right. We'll hold it off and we'll talk to you some more.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would there be any table legislation to be removed from the table? We have no property standard ABO appeals to consider today. Would there be any? We have MPC ZBA appeal to consider tomorrow. Are there any other appeals, Madam Clerk? Are there any reports from officers, boards, and committees? Madam Clerk, is there a clerk's report? Yes, we need to get with IT so that we can, the mics are real soft. Okay, but this mic is very soft and you can't hardly, unless you just bumping your lip on, okay. Is there a clerk's report? Okay. Executive session, none. Is there anything else to come before this meeting? Yes. Okay. We're going to join this meeting, and then we will get ready for our special meeting. If nothing else to come before this body, you are adjourned.